Hey everybody, and welcome to the showroom, all my fellow hunters, collectors, gamers, and protectors. Today we have a Casablanca Columbia II on the docket for demonstration. This one dates to July of 1981, and it has antique white stencil blades and a K4L on it. Now the Columbia II is another lesser known and lesser common model of Casablancas. It is very ornate, as you can see by the plating. It also has a dropped flywheel, as you can see right there, kind of like the New Orleans, except not that dropped. Here's your tag. And this is a slumber quiet fan. And it has a bell canopy with a spiral downrod as well. And the K4L on this fan is in pretty rough shape, as all these arms are pretty loose. And there's no shades on here because some of the fitters are a little bent out of shape, so I can't fit them on there properly. So I'll have to work on fixing that a little later. And before we start this fan up, something else worth noting about it is that it was at one point rewired to run kind of weirdly. The fan is hot wired to just run directly. So anytime power is running to the fan will run. And then the chain right here, every third pull turns the light on. And when I opened up the cap and had a look at it, like I said, the fan was hot wired to always be running, as the one lead coming off of the because the way it works on a slumber quiet board is you have two wires that connect next to each other in the little pin connectors, and then the two wires come out, and one goes into the L slot, the lead slot of the pull chain, and the other one goes into slot number 1, which is for the power of the fan. So the way it was hooked up in this one is that the wire that would usually go to slot number 1 on the pull chain was just capped off on its own. And then the wire that usually goes to the lead for the pull chain was spliced with the hot wire for the light, aka the blue wire that comes out the top of the downrod, along with another wire. So those wires were spliced together with a third wire, and that third wire went into the L on the pull chain in the fan. And then in slot number 1 of that pull chain was the hot wire coming from the light kit. And then slot number 2 was just vacant, which explains why one pull turns the light on and the other one does nothing. However, I tried to rewire it back to the way it normally would be, and it didn't work. The fan just didn't work at all. So the exact reasoning for that, I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps one of the connections in the SQ board is fractured somehow, I don't know. Or maybe somewhere in the motor. It's definitely weird, but the fan does still run, so I'll just go down here and plug it into the power strip and it'll start up. And the slumber quiet is set to its slowest setting, as per usual when we start these out. So it was really weird how when because I took one of my other slumber quiet fans and put it next to me with the cap open for a reference, and I wired it back exactly the way it's supposed to be, and it didn't work at all. No fan, no light, no nothing. So, again, not exactly sure what's going on there, and I don't really want to experiment around with this too much because, of course, the Columbia II is a more rare and desirable model, so I don't want to, short-circuit or fry anything in there. And, of course, slumber quiet is a pretty, fragile system on its own, so again, I don't want to mess around with it too much, but I might someday to see if I can get it back into an orthodox fashion in terms of the wiring for the pull chain and stuff. And there's the light. And again, I do also have to take that light kit off of this fan and fix it up a little bit, as all the holders are drooping and some of the fitters are a little out of shape. But it's still a beautiful fan. And this particular Columbia II does have pretzel brackets, because Columbia IIs and Victorians around this time, and possibly some other models as well, some of them had standard brackets and some of them had pretzel brackets. For instance, I have a Slumber Quiet Victorian from the same month, July of '81, that actually came with both pretzel and standard brackets, which was interesting. So probably around this time, people buying these fans had the option. Just to show you, it takes 3 pulls, not 4, 3, to get back to the light. So that's a little interesting. Anyways, we'll turn the Slumber Quiet up a bit there. Oh, and one other thing worth noting about the weird way this fan is wired is the Slumber Quiet potentiometer is backwards, in the sense that ordinarily on a Slumber Quiet or a cardboard box variable speed Casablanca fan, clockwise makes the fan go faster and counterclockwise makes the fan go slower, turning the potentiometer in that direction. However, on this one it's the opposite. On this one, turning the potentiometer counterclockwise makes the fan go faster, and turning it clockwise makes the fan go slower. When looking at the wiring inside the switch housing, I did see that the 2 wires that go to the potentiometer had been cut and respliced with wire nuts. So clearly some bonehead rewired this thing at one point in time for reasons I don't know. Maybe they repaired the Slumber Quiet circuit in it, or maybe it had some kind of other problem and someone went in there and rewired it. And it does work, but not in the not ideally given the circumstances. You know, it could work. Or not work, but like, the way it's set up could be a lot cleaner. We'll just say that, but the fan does work. So I'm assuming that when they put the 2 leads for the potentiometer back on, they may have done them backwards, which is why the potentiometer, you know, the slow end is fast and the fast end is slow. So I could try switching the leads back to see if that reverts it back. However, I'm no expert on that sort of thing, so I don't want to do it until I know for sure that it'll work, because I don't want to do it and have it, you know, short-circuit the whole fan. But the fan itself is in good shape. The blades are a little dirty, but I cleaned them off the best I could. The antique brass is in really good shape, and the bearings are really quiet too. Though I really would like to know when and who rewired this fan. And as for the Columbia II as a model, it's a very fancy and ornate fan, and the housing is also very wide. One of the widest housings of the entire Casablanca lineup in terms of the radius, diameter, and circumference. And as for the Columbia I, the Columbia I was essentially the Columbia 500, this fan's predecessor, where there was a limited run of only 500 of them, and then later on they came out with this fan, which was the Columbia II. which is still not that common, but definitely had a less limited run than the Columbia 500. And the poster underneath the fan is blowing around a bit in the wind of it. And also I think a few of the screws that hold the wood blades to the brackets are a little loose, so I'll need to tighten those. It's making a little bit of noise. And now to full speed. And in terms of the finishes that the Columbia II was available in, antique brass is the most common. I've seen polished brass and possibly one of the copper finishes, like antique copper or polished copper. I don't believe it was available in any of the white or black or brown finishes, though. I believe it was just the brasses and maybe one of the coppers. And this thing is kicking great air and moving pretty fast. And the blades are balanced really well, which is always good for a bell canopy Casablanca, because then it's not going to wobble as much. And then we'll turn it off. Just had to go down to the power strip and unplug it, of course, to turn it off. And there you go. This is an antique brass 52-inch Casablanca Columbia II ceiling fan. Alright everybody, so until next time, grab yourself some cash money to spend, put your ceiling fans on full speed, and I'll meet you at the showroom.